For years, there's been this science fiction trope of conflict in the future being defined by large numbers of swarming drones or autonomous systems. But it's not just a sci-fi trope. This is also what a lot of war planners and a lot of people looking at the future of the military believe is going to be the future. Anduril Industries is a defense product company that builds defense technology and then sells it to the United States government and our allies around the world. The thing that makes us special and the thing that makes us different from a lot of other contractors is that we use our own money to fund almost all of our research and development, and then we build products and then we sell them after they're done. So we're usually not going to the government and saying, here's an idea, here's a white paper, you're gonna pay for it whether it works or not. We're saying, look, we are gonna use our own money on this. We're gonna make sure that it works, and no matter what, if you're spending money on it, it is a sure thing. Our military industrial base, the large defense primes that are willing to work with the DoD, don't have the best people, tools, or talent in areas like autonomy, robotics, sensor fusion, high-end networking, immersive displays. And what I wanted to do was build a new company where we could take people out of roles in big tech and put them to work helping with national security. So my last company was Oculus VR. I started it when I was 19 years old, living in a camper trailer. Something that not a lot of people know is that before starting Oculus, which everyone does know about, I actually worked in an Army Affiliate Research Center, the ICT Mixed Reality Lab at the University of Southern California. And one of the things that I worked on was a project called BraveMind. And I was not by any means really deeply involved with the day-to-day of that program. I was just a lab technician, a tech monkey, making a lot of the head-mounted displays work. But that was a program that was using virtual reality exposure therapy to treat veterans with PTSD in the US Army. And that was the first time that I was really exposed to how the DoD works with technology, how they think about technology. And it had always stuck in my head that that was something that I'd like to contribute to, that I would like to make better. You know, there were a lot of things that were broken, despite a lot of the good that was being done. The goal of Anduril is to become the next major defense prime. And one of the ways that we thought about this is figuring out what would a major defense prime look like if they started today. If you were reading science fiction set in the future, what would the backstory of a company like Anduril be? What kinds of technologies would it have built? What would make it believable? And it's clearly exactly the things that we're working on. Autonomy, artificial intelligence, swarming systems, really high-end command and control software. One thing that people don't realize is that Anduril is already directly saving lives. We're already keeping people alive using our technology who would not be alive today if it wasn't for our technology. For one example, we make security systems that are used to protect military bases around the world from hostile incursions. We make technology that's used to protect people from getting attacked by drones. And these aren't hypotheticals. These aren't things that we want to do someday. We're sending systems into combat that are protecting people from hostile incursions and hostile drone attacks. And I can't talk about the details for obvious reasons, but people should realize that this isn't a hypothetical that our tech might someday do some good. It is doing incredibly good things right now, today, as we speak. Anduril does business differently because we only get paid when we make things that work, not when we do work. Most contracts that the DoD gives out are what's called a cost-plus contract. You get paid for time, materials, hours, and then a fixed percentage of profit on top, which means you're naturally incentivized as a major defense company to makes things that are as expensive as possible, to work as long as possible. I'm not saying that people wake up in the morning and say, another day, another chance to screw the US taxpayer, but you naturally end up trending in that direction because you make more money when your project goes longer, more money when you come up with more expensive things. In Anduril, we don't look at it that way. Because we're funding the early development of our own programs, we wanted to find the most effective thing at the most cost-effective price point, and then work as quickly as possible so that we can actually sell that. And that difference in incentives is what drives the difference in results. Working in the defense space requires a lot of different and varied space. It's not like a software startup where you can just have a few guys and a few laptops and you just bang out on the keyboard in your living room. A lot of great companies have been built that way. But to work in the defense space, you have to have cleared space where you can work on sensitive projects to government standards. You have to be able to build hardware, you have to be able to build software, you have to be able to host demonstrations of your capabilities. You need to be able to burn things in and test them in a really robust fashion. You can't afford for things to fail. You can't really move fast and break things when lives are on the line. One of the biggest challenges we had breaking into this industry is that it is an industry that is really dominated by a handful of large primes who then subcontract all of their work to much smaller vendors. We wanted to be the next major prime. The goal of Anduril from day one was to save taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars a year by making tens of billions of dollars a year, making cheaper technology that does better things, and being the prime on it, getting to decide how it's built, how it's contracted, how it's sold. As a new entrant, it's really, really hard to get the government to take you seriously. You really have to build build things that are so good that they can't ignore you. You can't just be better than what they're using. You have to be so much radically better that they have to pay attention to it. If I was learning how to run a company for the first time alongside all of that, there's no way that Anduril would have been successful. It was hugely helpful that I've actually started a multi-billion-dollar company before. The defense space is definitely not a space where I would encourage first-time founders to look to. I understand why they do it. It's because they're patriotic. It's because they want to make a difference. They want to work on something more important than augmented reality mustache emojis. But this is a really, really tough business, and I would strongly encourage people to get some business, to get some experience out in the real world before you try to live in the bizarro world that is defense contracting. The United States is in a really interesting position right now, where the technology companies that really dominate our tech industry largely refuse to do work with the US Department of Defense. There's never been a point in history where that was the case. And that would be okay if it was just in a vacuum. I don't mind us actually having a weak military if we don't need a military. The problem is that we live in a time where major powers like Russia and China are heavily investing in exactly the types of technologies that we are not good at building. People laugh at China because they don't have a large blue water navy, or because we have a bigger air force or a more powerful air force. We need to realize they're not planning on winning by building the tools that we used to win the last few wars. They're going to build asymmetrical capabilities, largely built on top of autonomous systems, and then they're going to use their manufacturing advantages to come after us, especially China. And so that's the reason that I really became really fearful, because we live in this situation where the United States has always had an edge. We've always had the strongest military, we've always had the best technology, our partners have always relied on us largely because of that. And we're now living in an area where some of our strategic adversaries are rushing ahead of us with technology like artificial intelligence. The fundamental goal of every company working in the defense space should be to deter conflict. Most conflicts occur when one or both sides miscalculate the odds of winning. When both sides agree that a conflict either can be won or cannot be won, they tend to be resolved through more diplomatic means. And so the goal of the United States has largely been not to ensure that we will win wars against every person that we might ever fight with. It's to prevent them from ever even wanting to fight us, so that conflict is unthinkable. If you don't start working on technology for the DoD until after the conflict starts, you ensure that whatever you build will only be a part of the conflict, a part of the bloodshed. It is not going to be a part of deterring the conflict from happening in the first place. That's what Anduril's trying to do. We're trying to build the tools that make warfare unthinkable.